Natasha.
And Khalil, nurse.
And we are the co-hosts of
Woke and Free.
Thank you for tuning into our 15th episode of Woke and Free. If you've been joining along and with our conversation, you know that Woke and Free is all about being real and honest with each other and, of course, with you. We're talking about everything and anything that's important to us, to you, and the world, and of course, nothing is off the table. Now, in this episode, we're going to be talking all about sexual harassment and sexual assault. And this is a very serious subject. So before we get into that, let's go over the ground rules. First, did you subscribe to Woke and Free on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, SoundCloud, or iHeartRadio? If not, do so now. Second, did you share this episode with your friends, your family, and so on? If not, definitely do so. And definitely make sure you talk to us on Facebook, on Instagram, and Twitter at Woke and Free.
Each week, we like to share a little bit about us before we dive into the topic for the episode. Last week, we shared 3 foods we just can't stand. This week, we are sharing the biggest people pet peeves we have. So you can start off, honey.
Okay, so there's so many, but to narrow it down, I guess it really comes down to one simple thing. I am not a cat. So what do I mean by that? When you see me and you are super excited to come over and talk to me, and maybe, just maybe, my curly hair has really riled you up on the inside, and you go to reach and touch both sides of my head, or even just one side, and yet again, we don't know each other. I repeat, I am not a cat. Please don't pet me.
So that's your only one?
I would say that's my biggest one. There are other things I think I've mentioned before, maybe, or maybe just in my head. I'm not a fan of the phrase "good morning." So that's like a pet peeve. And just general personal space issues. Like if you're talking so close to me and I feel like I'm in your mouth, that's a problem. But my biggest one is that I'm not a cat. So just don't pet me.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
So my biggest one would be people that make promises that they can't keep. That's my biggest pet peeve.
Ooh, you coming for people. Okay.
So I have a couple of other ones. I don't like when people don't apologize when they know they're in the wrong. They just need to, suck it up and say the truth that they made a mistake. Then my last one is it has to do with driving. And that's when I see people that are sitting in the passing lane doing the speed limit. But then you go to talk to these people and they say they're great drivers. I definitely don't like people that do that. Say they're such terrific drivers, yet they're not really that good.
Like 95% of people.
Yeah. Just don't say anything about your driving. I think that's the better way to go.
Word. Okay, so let's get into this. The first, question I have about this is to discuss sexual harassment and sexual assault. It's really important that we first define it. So, Khalil, what do you think the difference is between sexual harassment and sexual assault?
Let's go to the dictionary definition for this. So, sexual harassment is unwelcome or uninvited verbal or physical behavior of a sexual nature, usually from an authority to a subordinate. Sexual assault, on the other hand, it's illegal sexual contact that is unconsented or the victim is incapable of giving consent, such as a minor or disabled person. This can again come from a position of authority, like a doctor, for example.
Absolutely. If you go to the EEOC, they define it as the harassment being unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, or other verbal or physical harassment of a sexual nature. And also the harassment doesn't have to be sexual nature. However, it can include offensive remarks about a person's sex, and also to be aware that both the victim and the harasser can be either a woman or a man, and the victim and harasser can be the same sex, just in case people think that it can't happen in those scenarios. And, the EEOC further elaborates that the law doesn't prohibit simple teasing, offhand comments, or isolated incidents that are not very serious. Harassment is illegal when it is so frequent or severe that it creates a hostile or offensive work environment, or when it results in an adverse employment decision, such as the victim being fired or demoted, which is interesting. And then the Department of Justice kind of touches on what you talked about, which is consent is the big issue between for sexual assault. It's when you're going to have this conduct that is going to be without the consent of the recipient, and that is going to include anything from forced sexual intercourse, forcible sodomy, child molestation, incest, fondling, and also attempted rape.
What are the stats for this type of behavior in the U.S.?
So it's really troubling that we have sexual violence taking place very frequently in this country. Actually, if everyone kind of goes to RAINN, they give a lot of really detailed stats. So first of all, did you know every 98 seconds another American is sexually assaulted?
Nah.
Right? That's seriously scary. Also, 1 out of every 6 American women have been the victim of attempted or completed rape in her lifetime. 14.8% completed, 2.8% attempted. Also, when you speak on violence against children, majority of child victims are between the ages of 12 to 17. And then of victims under the age of 18, you have 34% of victims of sexual assault and rape are under age 12, and 66% of sexual assault and rape victims are ages 12 to 17. So that's really scary. And in April Huffington Post article I came across, I saw that the number of victims of rape and sexual assault per year in the U.S. is 321,500, which is huge. And then also 90% of adult rape victims are female. So to me, it's saying that women are really the primary target for the sexual violence that's taking place here in this country. And also, the Connecticut Alliance to End Sexual Violence adds that sexual assault is actually a violent crime that is least often reported to law enforcement officials. And then from a 2000 study, which is a bit dated, that only 28% of victims report their sexual assault to the police. So what does that really mean? It means that we have a lot of violence taking place that isn't even reported on.
What I wonder about is, are there any women committing these crimes? We never hear about that.
What do you mean, Khalil?
Well, you just said 90% of adult rape victims are female, but who's the perpetrators? Is it 100% men?
I see what you're saying. Gotcha. I believe it. Well, you know what? I think the context would be male aggressors against female victims. But yeah, I mean, I think that the studies, the hard part is, right, this is a self-reporting, data-driven area, right? So if no one reports it, or people are, not fully disclosing the details of the violence, that we only know what we know. So interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So if we look at college campuses, specifically, we see that sexual assault is on the rise. According to the Daily Beast article by Lizzie Crocker, reports of sexual assault increased 205% from 2,200 in 2001 to 6,700 in 2014. But this is only the reported number. The actual occurrences are most likely higher. This upward increase could just reflect that more victims are actually coming forward, not that sexual assault is actually on the rise. It might just be victims are more willing now and more comfortable reporting what happened.
I mean, we'll talk about it as to why this is happening, but I think that I think it's a bit of both. I think that people are more comfortable now, especially with the Me Too movement, that people are coming out and saying, "Hey, me too. I was affected. I was sexually assaulted or sexually harassed or whatnot." But it could also be just incidents itself. Do you think that we have proper measures in place preventing this type of behavior, whether it's sexual harassment or assault?
Yeah, I don't think so. Sexual harassment is quite prevalent in the workplace, and victims are often in awkward situations when it occurs. they could report it to HR, but then they'd be treated differently once coworkers find out about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think only this year has sexual harassment been treated as a serious issue.
Mm-hmm.
Before, it was the kind of thing that people overlooked. Now, with victims coming forward who are harassed or assaulted by big celebrities, society's taking a closer look at the situation. Although there hasn't been anything in concrete to stop sexual harassment, like there hasn't been any talk on how we can prevent this, if you notice.
Yeah,
it's not being talked about, preventative measures.
You know, it's interesting. So, again, if you go to RAIN, which you'll find the link on wokenfree.com, they actually talk about some of the preventative methods that can be used, whether it's how we act or our roles individually, such as bystanders, right? When you see incidents taking place, are you just going to, like, take out your phone and, like, be like, oh, my God, let's live this? Or are you going to, like, interact and, help protect whoever's being victimized? Or some of the social media activity we do that kind of exposes us, right? When we check in everywhere, then, you're also checking into the radar of predators, which is super creepy, but a reality that we need to keep in mind. And also traveling tips, right? For myself as well. When I go and I do talks, try to avoid like dark alleys, right? Try to avoid situations where you're going to be more unsafe, which is sad, tough to think that way, but it's a reality of life. But I think that
it's like not going into shark-infested waters, something like that.
Facts you speak, yes. Like, if you don't have to, maybe avoid,
Do the safer route.
Shout out to always thinking smart, Dad, yes.
And that goes for both genders. You don't want to put yourself in bad situations.
Exactly. Any
you
gender.
You can be harmed by other sorts of crimes. So.
Exactly. I think when you think about measures in place, I think you have to think about it as to what type of world are we going to live in? Are we in a preventative world or a responsive approach to life? So preventative means that we're taking kind of the approach that we're changing the mindset of people and how they address violence to each other, how we view each other, how we address mental health on a very large scale, and really kind of preventing incidents from happening, which is I think a bigger pill to swallow than what most people in our world seem to want to do is respond. There's an incident and now we have to respond, and we have to either be very punitive in nature, which is right, punish, the harsher the punishment, the worse the person won't want to do this, or also like, creating products, right? So say I see on Facebook, I don't know if you've seen a lot, but I've seen like, there's like things where you can tell if you put it in your drink, if your drink has been spiked, also like carrying different devices on you to where it can like be like a little stabber and you can like attack someone who like comes up on you real quick, or even
it's a personal defense weapon then.
Yeah, like, or even like the chastity belts, like underwear that's harder for someone to rip at and come at you. So like it depends. What do we want to do? It seems like we're more on the responsive as opposed to like the proactive approach to things. When it comes to reporting, I have seen some really disturbing things. So when you see in the news and media, you see a surge of people saying like, yeah, you like come out, share your thoughts, share your narrative, what's going on, oh my gosh, right? Sympathy and empathy that goes out. But I also see something which is really disturbing, which is the people are shaming victims. People are saying, you should have came out earlier. I don't believe you. This is a political ploy. Like, what the heck is happening here?
Like I was saying earlier, victims were afraid that they could lose their jobs. That's why they didn't come out earlier.
Gotcha.
They had to decide between paying their bills or standing up for themselves. It's great to be brave, but you have responsibilities too. Mm-hmm. It's a very tricky situation they're in. On the other hand, we need to make sure, though, that the situation is analyzed correctly and not just immediately siding with the victim. There's been some wrongly accused people in the past, and we should be very careful not to punish the innocent. If someone has multiple accusations and is generally known to be sexually pushy, then that is sort of a giveaway to their guiltiness.
Well, I agree with you in the sense that, every person deserves their day in court, right? At the end of the day, if you are or if you're guilty of an offense that you've done, then it needs to be proven, and that for all accusers, they have to be willing to really put their story on the forefront and break it down and have kind of go back and forth. But I do think that there's a difference between the opinion, like the court of the public, and like the legal world, right? And so I think it becomes a little bit tricky when we do have people who are falsely accusing public figures, and it kind of muddles the issue. But at the end of the day, I came across Southern CT or southernconnecticut.edu, which really goes into rape culture. Are you familiar with what rape culture is all about?
I haven't heard about that.
Okay, so they define it as an environment in which rape is prevalent and in which sexual violence is normalized and excused in the media and popular culture. Rape culture is perpetrated through the use of misogynistic language, the objectification of women's bodies, the glamorization of sexual violence, and that will thereby create a society that disregards women's rights and safety. So how do we see examples of rape culture? We're talking about blaming the victim, also trivializing sexual assault, like, boys will be boys, or locker room talk is locker room talk.
Whoa.
Yep. Also tolerating sexual harassment. Also publicly scrutinizing how a victim is dressed, her mental state, their motives, their history, right? Because modest women don't get assaulted, right? Only non-modest women do, right? No, your fashion has definitely nothing to do with your assault or violence against you, because it's been proven. And they go on and on to list other things like pressure on men to score, right? Pressure on women not to appear cold. So I think that if you go through, and again, you'll see the link on wokenfree.com, we're in essentially the middle of rape culture, which I think makes it easy for people when you have multiple women accounting to sexual violence against one person, and people are like, he didn't really do it. These chicks are just playing. Like, no, that can't be the case, right? Not 32 women or 20 women or 16 people can't be just flat out, just all their stories are just nonsense. You're not
There's
even
gotta
gonna
be some truth to it, right?
I mean, or at least verify, start an investigation, like figure out what's going on. Don't just shame the women or the victims that are coming out and saying no before you've even figured out if yes is a real option.
And in a lot of these cases, we're seeing that the accuser is just actually admitting to doing it. If you look,
Exactly.
they accept the guilt, and they admit that they were wrong in the past. Now, I don't know if that's good enough. Like, I'm not sure what that means. If they've learned,
Yeah.
they've stopped their old ways, and they know that they shouldn't do that anymore. I don't know.
I mean, I personally would love to hear from people who deal with this in their work life, either from the legal side or from the criminal justice side, because, I personally think saying, I'm a dirty dog isn't quite good enough. I understand we all do dirt and everyone has something, but, when you're violating human rights, and it is a human right to not be touched without when someone violates your consent to human touch, and for you to not feel safe is never okay. And just being very flippant about your transgressions is not okay. And I think that more is needed than just kind of being like, oh, I'll just step out of office, or it happens in the 70s or 80s. Like, that's bullshit. Like, that's just not okay. Do you think there are other factors that's kind of playing a role as to why we're having such a high propensity of sexual violence in our world?
I blame society for showcasing this in our entertainment.
Okay.
We're not really shown that, hey, this is wrong. You need to respect others' personal space.
Mm-hmm.
Media shows successful men can be sexually free and disregard others' opinions. It's rampant in music lyrics and on the silver screen, where when showing kingpins or drug lords, they're surrounded by women, and that's just, they're just allowed to do what they want without regards to the women's wants or needs. They're treated as objects. There really isn't another side to show what's truly right. we're just seeing the wrong thing continuously, and that's just getting ingrained in our brain.
Exactly. It's a socialization, right? And I think that if anyone's really interested in seeing, there's a lot of factors that one can consider. The CDC actually lays it out really good. They have individual risk factors such as we have alcohol and drug use or coercive sexual fantasies, hostility towards women, hypermasculinity, suicidal behavior. Also, there are relationship factors that one can consider, such as family environments characterized by physical violence and conflict, childhood history of physical and sexual or emotional abuse, emotionally unsupportive family environments, poor parent-child relationships, especially with fathers. We have community factors like poverty, lack of employment opportunities, general tolerance of sexual violence within the community, and then societal factors, which is societal norms that support sexual violence, like you were saying, societal norms that support male superiority and sexual entitlement, also weak laws and policies related to sexual violence and gender equity, such as, for instance, when we have a statute of limitations, right? A law that says you have to bring your claim in X amount of years. Well, if someone's not willing to or not able to bring their claim within that time frame, and then that just goes away, then it's as if that crime never happened, and that woman or that victim can never have their vindication, and that's not okay.
Yeah, it's a real problem. Given what is going on in the news, do you believe this behavior is more prevalent in certain industries than others?
So my initial answer would have been kind of in line with what you were saying about, like, oh, the entertainment, like, it's a dirty, dirty world. Sorry, there's so many actors that we love, but it just seems like it's, I don't know. Like,
well, I wasn't saying it was that industry. I was saying entertainment is to blame on why these people are committing these crimes. I wasn't saying that was the most prevalent industry.
Well, okay. So in my mind, I would have assumed like the entertainment industry, because it would have been a creative space where people are getting very emotionally open, and also it seems like there just seemed like to be this air about it where it's like, if you want to get ahead, maybe you'll drop down a button on something, or you'll be extra flirty at dinner and stuff like that, and that leads to what kind of things. But actually, that is not necessarily just the only industry. In a recent Mashable article that you can find again on wokenfree.com, there the sexual violence has no limit. It has no bounds. We're talking everything from advertising, agriculture, construction, education, finance, improv comedy, journalism, nonprofit, politics, retail, trucking. I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah, it really is. It's in every industry. There's not one you can name that doesn't have an incident. When will this sexual harassment or assault ever stop?
I would like to say that I think that it's possible for this behavior and this violence to stop, but it's really going to require a drastic change to the mindset of people in our society. As I have mentioned before, there's so many factors that go into why people do what they do regarding this sick behavior. And, it depends, right? Like, if we can break apart the individual role, the family role, the societal role, the economic, socioeconomic roles, and really make sure that people have more, equitable existences and think about each other in equitable terms, then maybe it's possible to change this. But I don't know. There also seems like people enjoy to harm others. People enjoy harming and really just that power that comes with the ability to take what is not yours. And I don't know if ever people want to stop doing that. I think it's really cruel and effed up. And it's like I don't know, maybe if you use technology, like maybe if everyone goes to like a virtual reality a seminar or something, and you can feel the experience of what it's like to be violated, maybe then people can have the empathy and say, oh, maybe I should try to not try to rape someone after I get them drunk without their consent and stuff like that. But I don't know, maybe that would turn someone on. Like, I don't know, what do you think?
I think it's tough to say. I mean, you can put all these things in place, but if you don't really change what like the concept is to have power, then I think Some people that obtain it, like they say, power corrupts. The whole saying.
Yeah.
They get a sense of entitlement. These people that just get power and they're not used to it. They think they can do whatever they want, and their needs take precedence over others. How can we change that mentality for, especially the people that are in power?
Everyone has to be on the same level then. Which you can't, right?
That's
a whole
tough
other
thing, definitely.
A whole other thing.
Yeah.
Ugh. But see, then that's sad. That's like we're telling everyone, like, sorry guys, the rape continues. Like, I mean, that just seems really upsetting.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that has to be thought about more, and maybe it can be an educational process. It has to be shown to people when they're younger, like, what is the correct way to act towards others.
Well, you were saying that you think that men aren't really normalized early enough in viewing women, right?
We're taught. I told you though, what we learn from is from entertainment. That's where we really learn. It's not. We're not really talked to about how we should treat women. I mean, they say treat women with respect and maybe open the door for her, but that's about it. You don't really learn like what it is to show respect for a woman. I don't know. There's no class where you learn that. You just learn that from your friends and family and
gotcha.
Mostly entertainment.
So maybe education. Maybe that's going to be a big component. Mental health. I think dealing with mental health and dealing with education and like open our door and also kind of like what Tiffany Haddish says, right? Like get the cues as to what is okay and what is not okay.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. It's that time again. It's scenario time. Scenario 1. Your favorite grunge band is performing next week, and your friend has 2 tickets. She also told you that the lead singer allegedly was inappropriate with her cousin, and she's possibly pursuing legal action against him. Do you still attend the concert, or do you go on a social media and voice your outrage?
Ooh, interesting. So I'm a strong believer of that the greatest power we have is our power as a consumer. And so if you go to support something that is violation of your moral compass and what you stand for as a person, hopefully human rights advocacy is a part of that, then you're complicit with the violations that the person did. Now the only thing is you did mention that this is alleged, right?
Yeah.
Not confirmed. So that's the kicker here. So alleged. And have you had connection with the cousin to find out if you think that the cousin is being honest or no?
No, you never met the cousin.
So then you're in the situation of, do you take this alleged incident or do you just kind of go on your own and still support the band? Again, it would depend on what's the value of, if you do go to the concert and this person, the singer actually did violate someone else, are you going to be okay with that decision of going to support the band? If you're not, then don't go. If you are, then go.
But you love the band. You really miss out on this opportunity. This might be the last time they're coming to your town.
Because he's going to be in jail for raping someone, yeah.
Wow, yeah, especially then. You'll never be able to hear him live again.
Again, it's about consequences. I personally think I would feel terrible knowing that, like, if I went to that concert and then I found out that person was in fact a violator against women, then I felt like I supported that, like I was complicit in that behavior. So I would. It's about the after effect. I think what's gonna make you feel more guilty.
That's fair enough. I mean, I would think you just still go to the concert because everything's allegedly, so you don't really know what's going to happen next. So just go to... And the other fact is that these tickets were already purchased, so it doesn't matter. You could not go, but he still gets that ticket sale because it's already...
That's true.
The ticket's already bought.
It's
so
already
you could
purchased,
go and enjoy it and just kind of put that to the back of your mind that he might have made this big error in his life, but...
Yeah.
You really don't know. It's allegedly, right? So I don't think you should judge it off of that. You can't just jump to conclusions.
Okay.
Because then that's guilty before
proven
innocent. Like,
gotcha.
That's the wrong way around.
Okay.
Scenario 2. Your dad is a hotshot CPA. You can't mention going to the Gap for clothes because he always goes into stories about accounting principles and whatnot. One night you come home and see an envelope on the doorstep with his name on it. You open it and read the letter inside to find out he's being accused of assault and being blackmailed in order for the person to keep everything quiet. Do you destroy the letter, leave it for your father to find, or take it to the police?
Ooh, interesting. Okay, so you've stumbled upon this very disturbing letter. I guess that's a harsh one, because you know I'm a daddy's girl, too. Like, you just really trying to break hopes and dreams today.
No, that's not my intention.
Yes, it is. Listen, you gotta, so I think before you take it to the police, you probably should, share it with your father, because I think the letter was intended for, isn't it actually a crime to open up mail that's not yours?
So that's the, you're gonna bring it, well, technically this didn't have a U.S. stamp on it. It wasn't delivered by anybody.
Okay.
The person just put it down there. There's no stamps on this. It was right on the doorstep.
But it said dad's name. So
it just had his name on it, his first name.
So you went into somebody else's business, and then you found out something you didn't want to find out. So technically, the recipient of this letter should still receive the letter, and then if your father is like, oh, let's keep this on the hush hush, then, and if you want to hold him accountable for what's going on, then I would say you probably, I guess, can snitch on him.
But he probably wouldn't even bring it up to you though.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very buttoned up kind of guy. So
Yeah.
finding out all this information, he might just, you don't know what he would do with it, but he probably wouldn't even bring it up to you.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And then also, what's interesting is if it's on the doorstep and you get home before him, won't he know that you saw the letter, and then he'll make assumptions like, oh, did you read the letter, or did you just wait for me to see it? Like, won't it be kind of weird if you just pretend you didn't read it even though you know you did, because it was right there and his name was on it and it stood
so you're
out.
gonna have to.
So it's, I mean, you could, I don't know, you could not bring it up, but I think you got to at least mention that you saw the letter and kind of like question what was that about.
True.
At the bare minimum.
Yeah. Maybe also take like a snapshot of all the pictures of all the documentation, just in case your dad does try to like kind of brush it under the rug. And you want to report him, you want to at least have some type of documentation.
But you shouldn't be reporting him, because remember, this is somebody that's trying to blackmail your father. You don't know if they could just be making this up. I didn't say there was pictures.
Well, blackmail is a problem, so he shouldn't be complicit in the blackmail.
Well, he shouldn't. Yeah,
he needs to take it to the police and
deal
with it.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you can't negotiate with terrorists. Like, it doesn't work. That is terrorism.
Yes. Other companies should take note.
What? Throwing
I won't mention
shade.
the company's names.
Throwing shade.
Scenario 3. A great philanthropist and famous author you love has just been publicly accused of sexual harassment. You are in shock because this author was out of the spotlight for decades. Do you burn your collection of books by this author, or do you try to find out more of the details behind this upsetting situation that almost feels personal to you?
You coming for people. Okay, so again, I mean, when you're an avid fan of a person or a group or something like that, it really breaks your heart to find out if that person was living kind of a duplicative life and was doing down dirty stuff on their own.
Especially when they're such a great person and they're giving
and
away.
their public figure. Yeah. I don't think there's value to burning the books. I think that, again, you might want to look at the legal ramifications of such an act. But I would say that, if it really like upset your spirit enough to where you didn't want the books, then again, you can always donate them to the library. The library accepts donated books. So you can do that. You can resell them on eBay or Amazon and go about your business if you really can't have it in your home, or just keep your books and see what happens. I mean, if the situation hasn't been fleshed out yet, like you were saying earlier, you have to be careful to just jump to conclusions. You want to really see things out.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, don't be brash in your decisions. That's the best bet.
Look at us in agreement, and at this time again, we are at the end of our 15th episode of Woke and Free. This was quite the episode, talking all about sexual harassment and assault, and it was a very serious episode, and so I hope you had your serious cap on when you were listening into us. And we want to hear your thoughts, whether they're happy, sad, or everything in between about the subject, because it's definitely something that we're passionate about. Human rights violations are never okay. Woken Free stands against it. We will not tolerate that type of behavior, and we want to hear, what are your thoughts on it? So the other thing is, I always ask, will I leave you hanging for what our next episode is going to be?
On our next episode, we will be discussing, are we supporting the right things? So follow us on social media to follow along in the conversation, and make sure you tune in next week for Woken Free Wednesdays to join the conversation at www.wokenfree.com.
And I cannot express enough how we want to involve you as much as you want to be involved. If you want to be a guest on the show, which I know you do, submit a topic for an upcoming episode on our Contact Us page at wokenfree.com. And as I say every single week, we're very active, aka Tasha's very active on social media, but
okay.
But you hear from both of us on where? On Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter at Woken Free.
If you didn't already subscribe, please do. Share the episode and make sure you come back to join the conversation every Wednesday for Woken Free Wednesdays. Until next time.